I'm joined by David Connors of the Tuam Herald and the Tribe Talk podcast to talk about the Galway football semi-finals this weekend. Moycullen against Tuam Stars and Corofin against Mountbellew, Moylough. We of course will go on to talk about Corofin and the fact that they're going to be raging hot favourites to get it done again, because they haven't lost a game since God was a boy, as far as I know. But we'll start off with Moycullen against Tuam Stars. Tuam, they were actually headed for penalties until an 82nd minute winner from Ben O'Connell against Barna, weren't they?
Yeah, it was. Barn are a real surprise package in this year's championship. We'll say they've had plenty of young players coming through in the last 2 years, and they've had lads like say Oisin Gormley and a few more of these lads, and they've had Sean Conlon, who would have been with Kevin Walsh. He's back in with them this year, and they just. Tactically, they were brilliantly set up. From what I've seen, or from what I've heard, should I say, I didn't get a chance to see them myself. So they were in a tough kind of Westboro group there, with plenty of neighbours involved in terms of in their group, and they were surprisingly came out of that group, which was a bit of a shock. It was a real shock on the cards, but I suppose from a Tuam perspective, they haven't been performing to maybe the levels that they were, let's say, last year when they reached the county final, and they took Corofin all the way, shall we say. I suppose they jumped themselves out of jail, though. They haven't been overly impressive Tuam this year, like on their shows, like, I suppose. But they're a team that are like more than anyone else in football in Galway. They're well set up. They're well drilled. They have ample amount of quality. Like, you have a player like Gary O'Donnell there and Jamie Murphy. But just in terms of their performances, like these two teams met last year at the exact same stage, Tuam and Moycullen, and Tuam were they were 5 points down at one stage, but they hit a purple patch. I think it was between what was a 15-minute spell in the second half, and I think they hit them for 2-5, and without reply, and Moycullen never recovered from it, and. From there, then they kind of just had enough in the tank that they cruised to victory, really. But they're two good teams. Moycullen are definitely improved since last year. They've a couple of new additions as well. I know they don't have Peter Cook this year, but the players like, say, Desi Keneally and Conor Bowen is a great player. The two Kelly brothers as well, Sean and Paul, and if someone like, say, Garrett Bradshaw and David Wynne, who have Galway experience. But like, it's set up for a cracker. Last year, probably Tuam were the favourites, but this year, I think bookies have Moycullen favourites, and probably rightly so, because they're unbeaten so far in the campaign, and they had a tough draw. Moycullen, they were up against Annadown, and they had to. Their group was Annadown, Mountbellew, Moylough, and Micheál Brannock, so it would have been regarded as good, but they breezed through that, and they got over their quarter final clash, and now they'll probably by some people they would be regarded as the most likely to give Corofin a tussle, but you just don't know really.
Yeah, and like, they beat Paul Conroy's St. James's in the quarter final, and when I was going through the history books, Moycullen have never won it. I got to a final in 1977, lost that, but from their point of view, they're chasing history here, and it's been a year. We saw Dungannon last week win one for the first time in 64 years. We are seeing a season where plenty of teams are actually making that breakthrough. Whatever it is about the COVID break or what have you, feels like it's more of a level playing field, and these surprises can happen. But Moycullen, the fact that they haven't been in the final for 1977. Will there be any pressure attached to that? It's not like Tuam have been winning them lately. They've lost 4 finals since 1994.
Yeah, no, of course there'll be pressure. There'll be huge pressure, but I suppose they're probably not really thinking about it at the moment. It's just about getting back to the final before you can really start thinking about the pressure of the final. That would have been the target at the start of the year, because I suppose if you were lucky enough to avoid Corofin, you stood a chance if the draw was kind to you, because I suppose just in terms of the year of upsets, there's upsets, and then there's trying to dethrone Corofin, who are chasing history, like, you know what I mean. Any other year, I know we're going to touch on Corofin later, but any other team, you might say, Jesus, yeah, that you'd be in with a chance, but like, Corofin have been just absolutely just blitzing their way through Galway, and on most other occasions they wouldn't have even been in full flight until maybe this stage in the championship. But with no provincials on our ends this year, they're hammering tongues for Galway from the off, and they've been absolutely walloping teams. So Moycullen maybe get to a final, and then maybe the goal will be to overcome Tuam, because Tuam will pose us a serious test. Tuam, above any team, they don't lack confidence there. Even if when they met Corofin last year, they didn't shy away. They would have known each other from school. One thing's for sure, they wouldn't fear Corofin. There'd be one team in the county Tuam that wouldn't fear Corofin when they take the field. They manned up last year. They took them on mano for mano, we'll say, and they win for it. Like Tuam, they have a lot of players that you wouldn't be aware of unless you're from in the county. Like there's like Noel Henry, you've Cormac McWalter, who's having a serious year this year. I think he's their top scorer in championship so far, and Jamie Murphy, who hasn't hit huge heights like any. Jamie Murphy is, I think, is he 34 or 35? But it's just looking in from the outside, like he'd be a player that could easily still play for Galway. Just in terms of the quality that he could bring to the table. And last year, he was voted Club Player of the Year last year in Galway, and fully deserved, despite Corofin, absolutely, destroying some teams along the way and eventually overcoming them in the final.
Is there any particular matchup that you think will decide this game? Any particular players that you expect to step up?
Just looking at it here, I suppose if Moycullen will look to stop. They'll be really looking to put. They'll be looking to keep a hold on Jamie Murphy, because he's the man that kind of makes everything tick. And keeping tabs on Gary O'Donnell is another huge one for them, because he's kind of got these trademark scores, we call it, as he saunters down one of the wings and just clips it over from maybe 35-40 yards. They'd be two players that would be hugely important to stop. I suppose Tuam, from a Tuam standpoint, it'll be Desi Khalili would be the one that they'll be really looking to keep tabs on there. You've got like excellent man markers, like say maybe your Darrow O'Rourke or someone like that who could do a job on him, or there's so many matchups, Shane, all over the field. Really, it's very difficult to pick one. Like both teams they're brimming with quality, like real quality players and really good footballers. I'd expect it to be an excellent football game, being honest with you. I think that both of them have tons of potential in their ranks, and Moycullen have some excellent young players coming through. I know they're missing Peter Cook this year, but they're always bringing two or three players every year that can step up to the mark. And it's a very close one to call. I know Moycullen are heavy favourites, but I really don't think there'll be much in it. I think Tuam will run them all the way, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tuam came away with the win. Yeah,
I mean, any team that takes Corofin to a replay and nearly had it won in injury time the first day, they can't be too far away. So Corofin have to play Mountbellew, Moylough. Would like the latter Mountbellew, Moylough, they've lost 4 finals in the past decade, so they're going to be like, I mean, that's a tough thing to keep going back to the well after that. They beat Killannon in the quarterfinals, whereas Corofin beat Salthill Knocknacarra. 18 titles since 1991. Are Corofin hated within Galway? They must be.
I wouldn't be from football country now, so I wouldn't have any, you know what I mean, but I'd imagine people are probably sick of the size of them in a sense. Like, Jesus, there's probably some people there who are just like, will they ever just lose? But they're insatiable. Like, some people were saying at the start of the year that maybe Kieran Fitzgerald, you know, his retirement might open up. Like, they were looking at potential holes and gaps in the team that might, you know, that you could maybe target in Corofin. But Liam Silk stepped into the void at full back, like, and what a player to be able to bring in. Like, it's like you're bringing in one of the best defenders in the country to step in for Kieran Fitzgerald, which is no mean feat. Like, every year though, like even last year against Kilcoo, like, Corofin's bench is so bloody strong that, you know, that's what won it for them. You're Conor Cunningham stepping onto the field, and is it Dylan Kenny's and a few more of these lads. Like, they'd be playing on any other team in the county, to be honest with you. Are they sick of the size of them? Probably. People are probably sick of, like, how would you not, like, just in terms of even neutrals might be like, Jesus, wouldn't it be great if someone else was to win it for a change? But just on this game, it would be regarded as the biggest rivalry in, say, the last decade in Galway football now. Mountbellew, Moylough and Corofin, they've met 7 times in the last 7 years, say, in the knockout stages, and we all know every single time Corofin have gotten over the line. What is it? They've lost 3 finals in recent years, in 2015, 2017 and 2018 to Corofin. I suppose 2018 was a killer because they had it in their grasp, and Micheál Lundy stepped forward and flicked last gasp pint, we'll say, over the bar, and that was it. And then, like, if you don't beat Corofin the first day out, you definitely won't beat them the second day. That's kind of the mantra in Galway really at present. But in fairness to Mountbellew, my lord, they've unbelievable quality. Like they're really they possess some serious players through their field. Throughout the field, should I say, and they have, if Michael Daly pulling the strings at midfield, like, and some of Michael Daly's passing range is just, it's jaw dropping. I was chatting with a fella recently about it, and just some of the passes, he can just deliver on a sixpence from 40-50 yards on the button, and they've an inside line then of Barry McHugh and Owen Finnerty, who are absolutely devastating club forwards. They're worth, I think Barry McHugh has been one of the standout players in the competition so far, and Owen Finnerty is one of the best forwards in Galway at present, and they have Patrick Kelly as well, who's a young fella. He's a towering forward there. They could cause problems to Corofin, and you would have said that they would have given them a right good go, but John Daly's absence through knee ligament injury, a long-term knee ligament injury, is a huge blow there, because at times Mountbellew, kind of just looking on, they look susceptible in defence at times in Daly's absence, because Daly had been in outstanding form for Galway pre-COVID, we'll say, in the league, and he'd been one of the standout players in the competition up until that point. Keeping the Corofin attack, quiet is a serious task. Like Dara Silk is a player who stepped into the fold this year for them, and he's been absolutely unbelievable. He's like this is just Corofin down to a T. Like you've a county under 20 from maybe 2 years ago that couldn't get game time over the last few years, and now he just steps up and I think he's shooting the lights out. You've your Ian Burks, your Lundys, and Gary Sice. We know the story there back in with Galway now, so it's incredible. Like, and he was man of the match the last day in their quarter-final win against it just slipped the top of my head there, in their quarter-final win,
Salt Hill knocked the Cara.
He was man of the match
against Salt Hill knocked the Cara.
Salt Hill, yeah, he was man of the match against 7 points, and he's just probably the most consistent player in Galway, I'd say. Not even the last 5 years, the last 10 years, just brilliant. Every time he takes the field, he's the man that the opposition are always trying to mark and trying to shut down, because he makes everything tick. You don't and then you have the Farrahers, it's endless. And then we speak about Dahi Burke, who come on for 20 minutes, or it's just headaches all over the field. Like, how do you stop them? I just don't know. It's an unenviable task, no matter who faces them. I'd say you could pick the pick of the other 3 teams might could fuse together, and still they might beat them. Like, that's how good they are.
So you're definitely going with Corofin anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'd be. Anyone wants to have a bet? Corofin, give me freaking 1-2 on Corofin. I'll gobble that up. You know what I mean? It's just the performances so far. It looks like it had the inklings of a procession. Now, Mountbellew could cause them problems, but I just don't know. I just think Corofin they want to get the record this year of 8 titles in a row, and that'll be probably the last thing that they have to take off their bucket list, we'll say. But even at that mightn't slow them down either. They're just, I don't know where they get their hunger from at club level. It's just incredible.